This, as you probably guessed from the title, is a Bentley Bentayga, but not just any Bentley Bentayga, because this is the EWB. What does that stand for, I hear you ask? Well, it stands for extended wheelbase. Yep, this is the big one. This is Bentley's new version of the limousine, and it's an SUV. So I'm feeling at the moment quite conflicted. Firstly, because I should hate this thing, but secondly, because I kind of don't. Welcome to our latest video. I'm John Marcar, and this is the Bentley Bentayga EWB. So, here we are. Just like I promised I would be when sat in the glorious Bentley Mulsanne, we're now in Bentley's new flagship. This is the Bentayga EWB, extended wheelbase. And when I was driving around in that lovely Bentley Mulsanne, video of which, if you're seeing this on YouTube, you can now watch with this link up here, or I put a link in the bio below. I was celebrating the car and then at the same time getting awfully sad at the fact that it had come to the end of its life, the Mulsanne that is, because ultimately the new flagship car was going to come along and it was going to be an SUV. This SUV. And I've reserved judgment from that time right up to now. So here we are in Bentley's new flagship, Bentley's new limousine, except I can't call it a limousine because it isn't one, and well, Bentley don't use that word either. Bentley call this a true luxury SUV, so that's what we'll go with. It's a true luxury SUV. Now, this isn't my first time in a Bentley Bentayga. In fact, back in 2016, I starred in a film that featured a mysterious man following a mysterious woman around Europe following a trail of love notes. It was a fictional film, obviously, but what it involved was me driving a car all around Europe, starting in London, heading down to Rheims, then down to Monaco, on to Portofino, then off to Milan, then back to London via the Swiss Alps. Not a bad working week in the office, that one. Now, I say that I starred in the film. The only part of me that you'll actually see were my hands, because for the best part of a week, I was driving around Europe with a POV camera setup on my face. I looked a little bit like Pingu. But whilst making that film, it did mean there was an awful lot of driving to do. And I was driving that car for the best part of 4,500 miles all over Europe. And I remember thinking, before embarking on this film, I wasn't really that excited by the prospect of driving a Bentayga. After all, it was just another big luxurious SUV. And then I got in it and realised that the fit and finish was glorious, the power output was incredible, it was comfortable, it gave me massages, it gave me heated seats, air-conditioned seats, heated steering wheels, and all sorts of other luxuries that I didn't know I needed in life. And, well, it completely and utterly made me rethink luxurious SUVs. And here we are now, in 2023, in Bentley's latest Bentayga, the EWB, and yeah, I think I might be rethinking Bentley flagship models as well. And I'm partially annoyed by that. Now, there is an awful lot to cover with a car like this, both with interior features, exterior features, gadgets, and just general luxurious things. So my suggestion is that we find somewhere to park up and have a little walk around the car. Ugh. Well, we've escaped the treacherous wind, but we have now ended up in patchy rain, so do excuse the jacket, but I hope you'll forgive me because I've almost managed to match it with this rather lovely Viridian green paintwork on the Bentley Bentayga EWB. Now, let's talk about first the unavoidable factor that comes with this car, the EWB, and that is the size. It's a big thing. In fact, that word big is going to be used a lot, I feel, in this video. Starting off with that back door, it's enormous, absolutely huge. And of course, with big often comes weight. That's a big, heavy door. However, it's motorized. It means that when you open and close it, you can do so with just the lightest push, because it has some very clever motors built in to the B pillar that help you open and close it. That's incredible. So size, yes, let's get back to that. 5.3 meters from the very back to the very front. It's also quite wide at 2.2 meters wide, that's including the mirrors, and it's also quite tall, 1.7 meters in height. This is a big thing, and of course, being a big thing, it's also quite heavy, but perhaps not quite as heavy as you'd think. Thanks to some very clever aluminium trickery. There are bits of aluminium and steel monocoque technology that make this strong and yet quite light, plus aluminium panels on the wings, on the bonnet and on the doors. That means that it's quite a conservative, but still considerable, 2.5 tons. But luckily, with big car, big weight, there is also a fairly substantial, dare we say, big engine under the bonnet here as well. A 4-litre twin turbocharged petrol V8. You'll have to take my word for it, but underneath this rather ghastly plastic cover, there is a very significant engine. 4-litre twin turbocharged petrol V8. That's what you can find under here. They're twin scroll turbos as well, just like you'd find in racing cars, and they're mounted very deep into the V. The power output, as you would expect, continuing that theme, is quite big. Forgive me, I'll need to refer to my notes because there is quite a lot to remember here. 542 brake horsepower is what's coming out of this beautiful V8 engine. That's 404 kilowatts in new money, plus 770 newton meters of torque, or if you want that in old money, 568 foot-pounds. So what does this mean in terms of performance? Well, 0 to 60, that will happen in 4.5 seconds. 0 to 100, that will happen in 10 seconds. And this house on wheels, believe it or not, will top out at 180 miles an hour. Yeah. And I think using that reference of small house is quite fair, because it's also the same price as one. £211,000. Why don't we jump into the back and I'll do my best to explain why. Right, that's better. Let's escape the English weather. No need to use my hand to close the door, obviously, because we have a button for that. Also, conveniently, I have the spec sheet with all the options that have been picked on this particular car and some of the more detailed specifications as well. So, where do we start? First edition specification, £11,270. That basically gives you a specification that you only get with the first edition cars. There's some very beautiful little inlays that you can see on the eucalyptus. Yes, that's eucalyptus wood, both back here and up front. There's the airline seat specification. That's the seats that I'm in here. I'll show you their best feature in a second, but that is an option as well. £8,395. The name for Bentley sound system. Quite impressive. 20 speakers, 1,700 watt sound system. I have had a look under the floor in the boot, and there's an amp that has its own cooling fan. Probably need that, and as you would expect, the sound system is quite wonderful. Black line specification, that means the black badges that have been added on around the car. £4,405. All-terrain specification, giving you the ability to go off-road. That's £3,720. Couldn't possibly tell you what that gives you, because it doesn't tell me. Privacy glass, subtle, but it's there, £1,000. That's a little option added on. What else have we got here? Here's the details of the first edition specification. The Bentley Diamond Illumination. That's the little light up features that happen in the door cards. The first edition contrast stitching. That's the stitching you've got on the back of the seats. Black badges, fascia badges, welcome LED lamps, metal overlays, all sorts of lovely things. Oh, and that sound system as well. So spec the entry-level first edition one and you get the good sound system. That's good to know. Now, I could go through all sorts of other boring bits of stats, but before I do, I want to sit a little bit more comfortably. And to do that, I'm going to change my seating position. And to do that, I need to take out this handy little tablet. Now, with this handy little tablet, I can change all sorts of aspects of my comfort back here. If I go to the home screen and I select airline seats, for example, I can go to the position marked relaxed. I'm just going to hold my thumb on there. You'll see that I start to recline, the front seat starts to go forward, and very shortly I'll have additional relaxation in the form of a footrest that folds out down there. Pleasant. So once I'm fully reclined and sitting comfortably, I can take advantage of some of the other features that this car will give me, including massage and posture. Now, I've seen massaging seats in Bentleys before, that's nothing new. But this posture thing, this is a new addition to the car. This is effectively designed for the times that you might be sat in the back of a car for a very long journey and you might need to improve the circulation in your legs and back and buttocks. Well, you hit posture and the car and the seats gently start moving you around, giving you a nice little massage, pushing you forward in certain areas and lifting up your buttocks individually just to kind of keep that blood flow going. It's designed as a feature to reduce fatigue. Why would you want to reduce fatigue? You're in the back of a Bentley. It's glorious. Of course, you have got the usual massage options as well, which are absolutely fantastic. And get this, for the first time ever, I've never seen this before in a car. Just like you would find with air conditioning systems, there is an auto button that self-regulates the air conditioning, looks for moisture, looks for humidity, brings the temperature down if it needs to, warms the temperature up if it needs to. These seats also have an auto feature for the heating and cooling. This is really clever. So you hit climate and you can put on this feature here. Seatbelt must be fastened to use this feature, of course. Thank you, Bentley. Safety first. Sorry about microphone. You hit the button that says smart, and what the car does now, through all its various computers, is it uses sensors built into the seat that measure body temperature and humidity and regulate the temperature according to what it thinks you, the passenger, need. Have you ever heard of anything like that before in a car? Of course, you can turn that off and just have heated seats or air-conditioned, cooled seats, depending on how you are feeling. Also, with this little device, I've got the ability to close blinds, which you've got here for additional privacy. I also have full control of the windows on the other side of the car, so that when you, I don't know, enter your country fair and Billy on the gates doesn't know who you are, you can roll down the passenger side or the driver's side window, whichever side you need, to shout at them through and go, "Don't you know who I am?" Pretty incredible. Then, of course, there's the screens where I can hook up my phone to watch things like Netflix, which is built into the car already, or I can stream videos via YouTube, or I can just pick out audio tracks or music that I want to listen to, and just pop that back in its little holder. If I want to listen to something that perhaps the driver doesn't want to hear, as you would expect to find, there's a set of Bentley headphones that you can listen to, wireless of course, Bluetooth, so that you can have an uninterrupted journey while sitting with self-regulated temperature, getting a massage and watching, I don't know, the Driven Chat YouTube channel. But here's the thing. This is a Bentley. So of course it's a car that's designed to be driven in, but also one that you want to drive yourself. And that means that pretty much all of the luxuries that I have back here, I also have up there. So here we are at the, I was going to say the business end, but what is the business end of a Bentayga EWB? The front or the back? We're at the more engaging end, let's put it that way. We're in the driver's seat, and perhaps unsurprisingly, it's extremely comfortable. This seat, so typically for Bentley, is, dare I say it, the most comfortable driver's seat I've ever sat in. It's just as comfortable as the fully reclining seats back there. It has all the same gadgetry in terms of massaging functions. It has that clever auto humidity recognition thing to keep my bum temperature regulated. There are also additional comfort features in here, like ionizing air conditioning systems, which somehow negatively charge the air that comes out of the vents to then take hold of heavy particles, dust and smoke and things like that, and drop them to the floor, so that you as the driver and as the passenger in the back have nothing but pure air to breathe. Everything about this car has been really and truly thought out. I mean, the steering wheel, for example, is just the perfect size. Of course, you've got the option to adjust it and have it at whichever driving position suits you the best, but of course it's heated. And look at the quality of the stitching. Look at the quality of the leather. And the same goes for just looking around the cabin. I mentioned while sat in the back that glorious eucalyptus wood. Now, as you may be aware, when Bentley put wood of any variety, be that walnut or eucalyptus or rosewood, in their cars, they book match it. That means that essentially the piece of wood that runs from this door card all along the front of the dashboard and to the other door card is one piece. It's sourced, examined, treated, and then cut so that you have a perfectly consistent grain looking across the car. It just looks fantastic. And everything about this car, I mean, look at the way the stitching is done. This new diamond stitching that's on the door cards, it's so fine, it's so intricate, and it's perfect. There is nothing that jumps out at you when sat in the driver's seat of a Bentley, especially not their new flagship Bentayga, that makes you go, oh, but that's a bit rubbish, because it's perfect. Elsewhere up here, from the position as driver, you have access to everything you would need. I'm glad, in a sense, that there's quite a modestly sized touchscreen in the middle of the dashboard here. Never really understood why screens suddenly got absolutely enormous. It's not necessary at all. This screen, as it is perfect, as is the screen that becomes your clocks as well. You have, of course, as you would expect, the ability to connect your phone with Apple CarPlay or Android CarPlay, streaming your favourite music or podcasts. And another thing I really, really love about this car is physical buttons. Yes, the screen's a touchscreen, but everything else down here, both on the centre console for changing the driver modes, that's a physical twisty knob that you need if you want to raise or lower the height of the car. Those are physical buttons that you push in. And for things like quickly turning on your heated seat or your air-conditioned seat or adjusting the air conditioning, again, physical buttons that you don't need to take your eyes off the road to then feel around for and see. It's all there, it's all intuitive, it's all perfectly thought out. This car is very quickly warranting that price tag. And in fact, you might even say it's good value. A friend of mine very recently went to their local Ferrari dealership to have a look at the new Ferrari SUV, although they're calling it an FUV. But that's their stab at the big luxurious SUV. What are Ferrari charging for the big V12 one? £411,000. This is half price. And aside from it being beautiful and perfect and comfortable, the tech in this car is mind-blowing. Again, like you would expect to find now in any modern luxury car, it has of course got things like assisted cruise, adaptive cruise, assisted steering. It effectively means that for additional driver comfort, you don't have to think about keeping a regular distance from the car in front. You set your cruise control to the speed you want it to be. The radar locks on to the car ahead. If the car starts to slow down, you start to slow down. If the car starts to speed up, you will speed up, but only to the speed that you've set your cruise control to. Then there's other clever things, of course. Wireless charging pads. You've got that for your phone in the front and in the back as well. But one thing that I only really ever see on Bentley, which at first always feels like a gimmick until the time that you actually use it, is night vision. Yeah, this car is equipped with night vision, which means that as you're driving along at night time, you can display on your center console here, onto your clocks, a night vision screen that looks out for objects according to their heat. Now, you might be thinking, what on earth is that for? But let me tell you, when you're driving along at night down a country lane and there's a massive deer hiding in the bushes that you can't see, knowing that the car knows it's there before you do is surprisingly reassuring. And it's amazing how many times I've noticed whilst driving this car the past few evenings, how many little eyes I've noticed hiding in the bushes that otherwise I wouldn't have noticed. The car sees it, makes me aware of it, and then I look and you can actually see them. Really clever. Really, really clever. I just can't get over how amazingly clever and comfortable and convenient, and I'll say it again, perfect this car is. It's as if everything has been thought about, and then not only thought about, but then pulled apart, reworked and re-engineered. It's incredible. I think it's time we get back on the road. It's time we do a bit more driving. We can show you some beautiful scenery shots that we've already filmed. But before we do, there is one other really well thought out thing that I need to show you at the back of this car. Right, picture the scene. You're down a dark country road and oh no, you've got a flat tyre. So you get out and have a look and think, right, time to put my hazards on. So you open the car, you put your hazards on and you close the door. And now on your dark country lane, you need to get some equipment out of the boot. Oh no, but look, the lights are on the back of the boot lid. So when I open the boot, the cars behind me aren't going to see the hazards. But no, Bentley have of course thought about that, and the minute you open the boot, both the side lights and the indicators are relocated to the bottom. What have they not thought of? Now, I'll do my best to give a driving impressions review of the Bentayga, but it's one of those cars where there's almost not much point. It'd be a bit like me being invited to a Michelin star chef's house for dinner and then you asking me if the food was any good. Of course it was. And this, of course, is fantastic. This car is so comfortable. It's such a lovely place to be, such a wonderful environment to be in. I've got more leather in here than I think I had even in the Mulsanne. Yep, even the roof lining is covered in the stuff. I've got double glazed windows all around. I've got the luxury of closing blinds behind me. I've got the thickest, plushest carpet I've ever felt in a car, which of course means that it's exceptionally quiet. I've got assisted steering helping me. You might have heard it there, as it thought I wasn't quite steering around the corner in the right way, but assisted steering, assisted cruise, heated steering wheel, heated seats, massaging seats, ionized air conditioning, you name it. I've got just about every single luxury in here, and well, it's great. From a driving point of view, of course, the performance is fantastic. Of course, the stopping power is fantastic. Even the steering and geometry is fantastic. Given that this is 2.5 tons of metal, this thing does drive brilliantly. This Bentayga EWB, being a performance car as well as a luxury car, does things that your brain sometimes takes a while to process. This is a big car, a big heavy car, and yet because of all of that power, you have the ability to accelerate very quickly, which makes the car feel very light. But even mid-corner, throwing this car into the tight and twisties, it does things that, well, it shouldn't do. I've no doubt that that will come at a cost. I've no doubt that the geometry in keeping a car as big as this planted through corners is going to eat away at tyres, but you can't help but be impressed. It's just staggering. This, of course, is a car that is not in any way, shape or form hybrid. They might call it a mild hybrid because of some extra battery, but strictly speaking, this is still a good old-fashioned petrol V8. It gurgles, it blasts along, it sits quite happily, and perhaps quite surprisingly, it's not as awful on fuel as you might think. In fact, the past couple of days I've been driving around filming this, driving it fairly hard, doing lots of stopping and starting and hard launches and acceleration, and I'm still sat at 21 mpg. And okay, I know, if you're looking at this driving a Prius or a tiny little Honda engine car, that's not brilliant, but in the sense of it being a gas-guzzling twin-turbocharged petrol V8, I don't think that's bad. Only 10, 15 years ago, we were seeing new petrol cars with turbocharged V8 engines, and they were getting in the region of 4 or 5 mpg. This is, dare I say it, almost frugal. Almost. So, I guess we should probably draw to an end and come up with an overall conclusion. And with that, I feel I'm at risk of having to eat some of my own words. I moaned in my Mulsanne video that a mass-produced large SUV cannot possibly act as a flagship car for Bentley. And yet now, having driven this for almost a week, I feel that actually maybe it can. I'm still going to stand by the fact that I prefer a long wheelbase car to be the flagship model over an SUV. But I can't deny that this thing is anything other than brilliant. Perfect comfort, perfect fit and finish, wonderful luxuries, both here in the driver's seat and back there as a passenger. This thing is a special car. Well, I'm conflicted. I was sad about the loss of the Mulsanne as Bentley's flagship car, and I'm still a bit sad about it as well, to be honest. But I think that sadness would be perhaps more justified if this thing was anything other than spectacular. Except it is spectacular. This thing is absolutely fantastic. And here's the thing, Bentley predict that this, the EWB Bentayga, is going to account for almost half of their new car sales this year, next year, and probably the year after as well. So how can I argue with that? The question is, I'd like to know what you think. Let me know in the comments below, and I'll do my very best to reply to every single one. I'd be fascinated to know if you, like me, think that the flagship car for Bentley should be a low-slung, long limousine, or if you're quite happy with the fact that it's a massive SUV. For now, I will leave it there, and I will say thank you very, very much for watching. If you're feeling especially generous, don't forget you can subscribe to the channel. Please do so by hitting the little subscribe button, and you can hit the little bell as well to get the notification of when we next upload a video. And also don't forget that these videos, this is just one of the media outputs that we put out. We also have our Driven Chat podcast that comes out every week, and we also have written articles as well that you can see at drivenchat.com. There will be a written article about this car with a slightly more in-depth review on the driving characteristics, and as well as some geeky facts and figures as well. So if you want to have a read of that, head on over to the website. For now, I'll say thank you very much for watching. I'll also say don't forget you can follow everything that we do at drivenchat.com, and until next time, I'll say goodbye. Goodbye.